Welcome back to the Void Podcast, one of the premier shows out here where every week we say stuff that we believe and everyone on the internet says
we don't believe you at all.
And that we're bought and that we're virgins. Well, keep it coming. We don't give a shit. In fact, we like it. We thrive on it.
It's well said. I mean, I can't add anything to that.
All right, so let's pick up where we left off with the National Football League.
Yes. The Chiefs won, and so did the 49ers.
Yeah. What did you make of that whole L'America thing that was going on?
That's the thing. I'm conflicted because I like Lamar Jackson, right? I think he's a good football player. I also like what he does for the communities in general.
That one video of him hanging out with the cancer kid?
Yeah, it picks me up immediately.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
But, Save L'America only has to do with the fact that people hate Taylor Swift. It's just them hating the Chiefs, hating Taylor Swift, and hating Mahomes' brother.
I'm a little torn. Do you say Miles's or Mahomes?
Mahomes.
Okay. I'm a little torn here because I don't really give a shit about like the whole Taylor Swift thing. I don't know, everyone's so mad. But I love that it's gone from like L'America to like now Purdy's the guy, which is fun. Like everyone's rooting for my team, you know?
Yeah, you like that. That's why I was conflicted as well. It's like I think that people hating on Taylor Swift really can't bring up a good reason because even like thinking that she steals like television minutes. So like I have like the last 5 games and how many minutes she was on TV. So versus the Ravens, 32 seconds. Versus the Bills, 24 seconds. Versus the Dolphins, 1 minute and 16 seconds. Versus the Bengals, 12 seconds. And versus the Raiders, 14 seconds.
I guess
Is she really taking up all this time? Or do you just not like her?
Tua was pretty boring in that game if she got a minute.
Maybe. Or, here, let me see. Yeah, and well, there were 5 touchdowns in that game. Or no, not 5 touchdowns. She was shown 5 times in that game.
Yo, let me ask you a question, okay? Why? So she's sitting in these like big seats at every game, right? Probably the nicest seats in the stadium. Mm-hmm. I would imagine the Chiefs probably pay for that, but if they don't, then
I think she pays for it.
What do you think? $10K a seat?
I don't know. I think it might be really expensive. I heard that Christian McCaffrey, his wife, was trying to get like the best box seats in the stadium for Super Bowl, and it's $2.5 million.
Okay, so
obviously it's a little different than a regular season game, but I wonder if it might be around like close to that.
Why do we put so much value on that?
Like sitting for the Super Bowl?
Yeah. Why is that so fucking expensive?
Well, Super Bowl's the biggest sporting event in America every year, right? So probably that.
Do you think it's a pure status thing, though?
To be like able to sit in those boxes?
Yeah, and then if you have $2 million to say, this is what I'm going to do with those $2 million.
Yeah, it's probably a status thing. I mean, obviously the people there want to watch it. I mean, I'm sure like the main people that bought it want to watch it, and then like they have their entourage. Probably has something to do with status, liking the game. There's no reason to pay $2.5 million for those box seats, though.
No, like you could buy... Even if you wanted to like do something more fun, you could buy like sports cars. You live in Europe, like you can do whatever the fuck you want. You know,
yeah.
For one game.
Well, I think if you're able to spend $2.5 million on box seats, then you're probably also able to do all those things as well.
It'd be funny if someone like
worked their entire life
and they have
$2 million
one
time
and they're broke.
Yeah,
you see like Bernie Sanders up there. I saw somebody was yelling at Bernie on the Senate floor because they were like, "You have $8 million," and he's like, "No, I don't. I have like $2 million."
Still $2 million.
Yeah, people go after him really hard though for him and Hasan Piker.
Yeah, they really go after socialists, but it's like, I think it's okay if you advocate for a system, and until that system's implemented, like you aren't a part of that system yet, you know. So like it makes sense. Like are they just going to donate all of their money because they individually think that like socialism or something might be better?
I think it would be nice to see them donate some of it.
It would, and I do think Hasan you can probably shit on a little bit more just because. He like does have that mansion. He does like sell merch. He sells merch that says like tax the rich, and he's like making like $50 on a shirt, you know.
Yeah. And
he says like he like does it with like unionized individuals, but it's like I don't know how true is that, you know.
And it's like remember that MrBeast debate we did that I feel like you won. You made some good points. I imagine Hasan would probably be one of those people who'd criticize MrBeast, and it's like he's doing more good as a capitalist than you are as a socialist by far.
Yeah.
You know?
Because, Hasan's the biggest political streamer in the world. I'm sure he could do a lot more than, like, not react. Because that's what when he even reacts, he's not really reacting. He's, like, watching it.
Yeah, are you the one who showed me the thing where his editor will like put in a video of him sitting there.
Yeah, so it's like live on stream, like he'll react to stuff, and then he'll just get up sometimes, like to go to the washroom or whatever, or do something else. But there's like some videos where he's gone for like 60 to 70% of the time. So like now, because he's gotten so much hate for it, I think his editor like puts in video of him like in the bottom corner of him reacting when he actually on the live stream was never there.
I feel like he should totally be sued for that. Because I know there was a H3H3 lawsuit where they determined that if it is transformative content and you're like doing a comedy reaction or something, that's protected. And I totally agree with that. But I don't think you should be able to just take someone's video, project it on your screen, and take all that revenue from them when you're literally doing. You're not even standing.
And that's what he's doing. And dude, the argument he's making is really dumb because he's just saying, no, I actually think that's probably bringing eyes to their channel instead. But it's like I've never watched someone react to a video and then gone and watched the actual video they were reacting to.
No, I mean like, it's possible that you see the reaction, you become aware of the channel, and then you subscribe or something.
Yeah, that could happen.
But it definitely
was a really good video. But you're not going to get the views.
Totally siphons from the original video, at least.
Yeah, I totally agree. Speaking of which, we did a Charlie Kirk whatever podcast reaction.
Yeah.
How'd you feel that went?
Honestly, like we got a lot of hate on that. I feel like if you watch through our reaction, it was a pretty measured thing. Like the first half an hour at least, like I'm pretty consistently defending Charlie Kirk and giving him the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, I admit I was going a lot harder on Charlie than you were. But like what I was saying, I don't even think was like crazy. Like even like when I made like jokes about him, I was like, yeah, no, it's just like a famous joke about him. It's like I don't get why people feel the need to defend someone that hard. Like even like someone who like I like watching a lot, like I don't know, like Destiny or Danny Duncan, or like MrBeast. I'm never gonna go into the comments of someone who's shitting on them and be like, dude, he's so much smarter than you guys. You don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
it's like how do you feel that strongly about this person? I don't get it.
Do you have a sense of which of the big conservative media figures are grifting and which ones actually believe what they say?
I don't think any of them are grifting, probably. I think there's like a grift that goes on a little. I think
like Tim Pool is grifting. I think Dave Rubin is grifting.
Yeah, maybe.
Because they're the guys who left the left. Like that shit just seems like a cash out.
Yeah, and they really love, like conservatives love pulling in people that left the left. But it does feel like Charlie Kirk, Ben Shapiro, like more of the religious guys. And I mean, all of them are kind of religious. You're not even conservative. You're just like Christian conservative. It's like a completely different category. They do all believe in the religion that they abide by, but they do really push it so hard that it does almost feel like a grift, you know? So it's like, I don't think any of them are like 100% grifting. Like I think Andrew Tate is a grifter. Mm-hmm. I don't think Charlie Kirk or Ben Shapiro are grifting. I think they do actually believe in what they say. Even like Hasan, like you can make the argument that he's a grifter, but like he's like that kind of conservative grifter. Like there is like a grift going on, but he does also believe in a lot of the shit he says. Like the dude brought on like what was it, like Houthi pirates or something?
Oh, yeah.
Or Yemeni pirates.
We should talk about that.
And like he brought those people on, and like that's how you know, like, oh, okay, this guy actually does like believe a lot of what he says. It's like super uninformed a lot of the time, but he does actually believe it. So it's like you can't fully call him a grifter.
That whole thing was fucking absurd. And by the way, I think Steven Crowder is one I'd call a grifter as well.
Yeah, you could probably call him a grifter.
But that Houthi
or
thing,
what would his grift be?
Steven Crowder?
Yeah.
I don't get. I mean, you can't really prove any of this stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't like
throwing grift around loosely.
Sure. I think one telling thing is that like my understanding of him is he tried to be like a Hollywood guy. I think Shapiro did too.
Mm-hmm. And then Michael Knowles did.
Knowles
I don't know
did.
If Ben Shapiro did.
A lot of these guys like tried to get into
and they're just not that good.
And then they tapped and they got mad at the system.
And they hate it, yeah.
It's like a Moneyball type thing.
But yeah, Crowder might be the most grifty out of all of them. Like he has like the full like mug club thing. Mm-hmm. And I like honestly, some like the guy claims that he's like based in statistics. Like whenever he did his Change My Minds, he's like, well, I'm going to need you to convince me with some kind of stat, you know. So like an appeal to like the general public consensus won't work with him. But like a lot of the things he talks about, statistics do disprove him.
Do you know how he pitches his show, like his marketing?
No.
He says that he's a comedy show. Like he thinks what he's doing is like the right wing version of like what Colbert is doing.
Oh yeah,
that's his perception of himself.
Like his comedy isn't good.
No, he's not
like,
funny.
And I don't mind throwing it around. Like it is just like racist sometimes.
Yeah,
you know, like it is just bad comedy a lot of the times. And also he's another person that would shit on trans people, but he loves dressing up as women. Like So I don't really get like his position on it. Like he like shits on people that want to like
does that.
Like he's gone to like women's marches as like and presenting as a woman.
But I've heard there's been some rumors behind the scenes that he might be like LGBT.
I believe it. Like a lot of the comedy sketches he's done would probably hint to that.
Yeah, a lot of them rely on him dressing up as a woman.
Yeah, but it's like he grew up like trying to do comedy, trying to do acting. I think he did some like voice acting. He was on fucking
Arthur.
Yeah, he was on Arthur.
By the way, shout out to that podcast
that only does Arthur.
Yeah, I think they're one of like the biggest Halifax podcasts.
It's impressive. I'm surprised you have so much content to talk about.
If you guys ever want to come on the show, we'll reach out.
We can learn some Arthur, so that'd be good for us.
Yeah. It seems like when comedians are really right wing or really left wing, it makes them hard to be funny. It seems like kind of centrist or like mixed comedy is all the best comedians.
Well, what would you consider Stephen Colbert? I guess
he's a liberal, but I don't think he's really funny. Like I think the Colbert Report was really funny, but like his new show is like not.
What about who's that guy? He's like the British guy.
Yeah. John Oliver.
I think he's funny.
I think he's pretty funny. Yeah. So
and he's left.
Jon Stewart's pretty funny.
Yeah, Jon Stewart's good as well.
Maybe there's just not.
I hope it's not the bias, but it does feel like
it's like SJW. That's not funny.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But it's like they are liberal people that do like politics and comedy, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it does seem that like a lot of the mainstream conservative comedy politic area is just like shitting on people, like shitting on like minority groups. You know.
You're a Shane Gillis guy, right?
Yeah, I think I haven't watched really anything other than like his reels, and then I saw his stand up. I think he's funny.
He's funny, and like I couldn't say confidently who he voted for. I don't know. He seems like sort of a moderate, maybe slightly left of center guy.
Like I think he said he'd probably vote for Trump.
Okay, yeah, and he's funny because his comedy is not just like trying to push an agenda.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's about making fun of other people's agendas.
Yeah,
that's what good comedy.
Yeah,
is.
no, he's funny. I like Shane Gillis, and I think that's a good example of. Like conservative leaning people can still be funny. It's just like when Steven Crowder does it, it's just not funny. He's just not a funny guy. Like he's just like a little racist and like homophobic. Like even one of his shirts is like says like fascism is for figs, and like the I is like asterisk out, and it's obviously supposed to be an A.
No, I think it's a socialism.
Oh, socialism. Yeah, not that one.
And also
it's just like.
I must have watched a bunch of Steven Crowder at one point. Like when he starts his show, he's like, "Here's our 1/4 Asian producer," and he says it like,
and then like it's like
a running gag.
The not gay Jared.
Oh yeah, and like none of it's funny. It's all really weird.
Yeah, it's only the people like a part of his group laugh at it. It's like he literally hired on people to laugh at his jokes because no one else would.
So okay, conservative media. I don't know if he's been on Crowder, but I know he's been on Shapiro and a couple other shows. Jonathan Isaac, we've been talking about a lot lately, as someone that we'd be interested in having on the show. And you wrote something down here about religious people. So I just want to ask this question. Do you think that the left, like not necessarily politically, but like the cultural sphere, has kind of given up on religion too much?
Given up on it too much?
Yeah. Is there a void there?
I don't know, dude. I like a lot of like all my grandparents and the people that age, they're all Democrats, but they're also all religious. Like obviously conservatives are gonna lean more religious, but I don't really have a problem with people giving up on religion as long as like society isn't imploding. And a lot of them point to like society is imploding, like the West is failing, and it's like it's not really failing. It's still doing really well. They're still like progressing. I think I'm okay with religion kind of dying out. Like I think that like 1,000-year-old texts that have been translated multiple times into different languages. It's like, how much does that really apply to our day-to-day lives now? Mm-hmm. You know, it's like, it does like give you a sense of community and gives you like a sense of purpose. Like it also doesn't make you have to ask really difficult questions that can give you like a lot of existential anxiety. But I don't really hate it that much that people are like leaning away from religion. You know, it's like, it's just not like as proven anymore. You know,
it's
like
not as relevant.
It just doesn't play into life as much.
I think that's really interesting what you said about how you have some like older family members who lean Democratic, you know, but are religious. Like I'd assume like maybe they have like unorthodox views on like gay marriage or abortion. Like they might be more progressive than like the Christian church would be. Would we say that's accurate?
Yeah, it's like my like some older people that I've known, like they've like made like homophobic remarks, but they aren't like directed to be homophobic. It's just like the time that they were like grew up in. So it's like if someone was like dancing and they're wearing like more of like a flowery dress, they're like, oh, he's a little flamboyant there, isn't he?
But they'd probably still like vote for gay marriage at the end of the day.
Yeah, they would.
Okay, I think that those people are really interesting in the same way that like vegetarians are interesting, like as opposed to being vegan, where it's like if you're gonna like accept any of the tenets of a religion, like how does it even make sense to only accept some of them? I feel like the most like rational religious people in some ways are like the fundamentalists.
I don't think any religious person is ever 100% fundamentalist, though, right?
So
Like
then
no
they're
one
all
follows
kind
it.
of full of shit. But the ones who at least are trying to be perfect, like, at least then it makes sense. But how can you say like, oh, this text is sacred and that's why I believe in God, but then I'm also going to throw certain shit out? It's like you don't even sound like you're religious anymore at that point.
Well, you're picking and choosing what works for your life, right? I might not know enough people like this, but I don't know anyone that follows the text like to a T. And like, does that mean that you're not religious if you don't do that? I don't know. But I guess like they are kind of like LARPing a bit. Like they're getting all the benefit of saying I got to go to heaven, and they're getting all the benefit of like feeling like holier than thou, but they aren't like following everything perfectly. But I mean, maybe I don't know enough about religion. Maybe there are some things that like the Pope doesn't care about anymore, and like he's like the guy you turn to, you know, in respect to Christianity.
If you're a Catholic, yeah, but not if you're a Protestant.
Okay, yeah. So I just might not know enough about it.
I think it's an interesting era that we're in though, where like religion's sort of fading away, and we're losing a lot of those community benefits and like what you're talking about with answers to those existential questions. And I don't know what's going to replace that. It seems like I just wrote this piece for class that I read to you, where I'm trying to explore this idea about like cracks in society, just like shit that doesn't quite make sense. I feel like the loss of religion is kind of part of that. It's like there's just weird things going on.
Yeah. Religion does tie a lot of things together. It like keeps a community together. It gives you like it gives you like the same moral framework as other people. So it's like when you have a disagreement, like you know what you need to look at. Because it's like if someone who's religious and someone who's non-religious talk about like OnlyFans, like they're never going to be able to have a productive conversation because they just completely disagree like fundamentally on life, you know. But I like religion. Like religion's nice. I just don't like when people feel the need to project it onto everyone else.
Are your parents religious?
No. Like I think I was baptized actually. I think both my parents were baptized as well.
Why were you baptized if they're not religious?
Well, just because my grandfather was a priest.
Okay.
So, like, and my grandmother's religious, so it just happened.
Did you grow up believing in God?
Probably a little, but no. Like my dad's like spiritual. Okay. Right. So it's like he believes in like something more. I don't know like how defined it is, but it's not like God. Or it might be, he might call it God. Like my mom like really has like a strong sense of connection to like the environment, like not like in like a weird kind of like undefined sense, but it's like when she walks in nature, she feels something more, you know?
I'm kind of split on that. Cause like I really like logic and like cold reason, like, but also like there are feelings that I get, you know, like whether I'm having a psychedelic experience or I'm in nature where I do enjoy that feeling, but I feel like it's not rational. So part of me feels guilty
and I do
for
wonder if it even is like a spiritual thing or if it's just like we've evolved. Where we are right now is relatively unnatural for like how humans have been throughout the course of their history. So it's like maybe just being in nature is like, like a breath of fresh air. Like your body's like, okay, nice. Now we're back where we're supposed to be, kind of thing.
Do you ever get
it might not be spirituality?
I think some of it's like a Destiny influence, where like his whole thing is like logic and reason, and like I'm so based on that. I've never heard Destiny say like, man, like I love taking a walk in nature and just feeling the beauty of it. Like, does he even believe in like love? Like, I've never heard him talk about like anything like beautiful or like supernatural.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's
maybe we'll ask him when we interview him.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, no, not speaking of which. Never mind. I was going to say something else.
It'll be up soon. So
yeah. We kind of were talking about grifter, and I said that I don't really like throwing grift around loosely. That's like more so like my personal stance on I don't want to use words in an inaccurate like connotation. Like if I'm unaware of a definition and I use it and I'm corrected, that's different. But like I don't want to call someone like a racist if they aren't actually racist. I don't want to call someone a sexist if they aren't actually sexist. I don't want to call someone a misogynist if they haven't done anything misogynistic, right? Why do you think it? Well, for me, tell me if you agree, and then feel free to pontificate. Why do you think words
go on
have,
a nature walk and think about it?
Yeah, why do you think words kind of have like no meaning anymore, or like certain words?
That's an interesting question. So like in relation to those types of words, like
yeah, like words that you would use to like shit on someone, essentially. Words like that you would call someone out on for doing something.
Dude, that's such a good question if you think about it like a few levels deeper, because it's like let's think about why
are they using them?
Yeah, why do people use those words? Like if someone is doing something that they're not trying to be racist, but they're breaking some sort of social rule that like say an 80-year-old person like says colored people or something with no intention of like trying to be racist, but they would be judged as racist by people our age. When those people get up in arms and say you're a racist, what do you think they're actually trying to communicate by that?
The people that are mad at them?
Yeah.
I think it's like us people our age are like socially conditioned, and that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. Like we're just socially conditioned in the sense that like we've grown up and society's told us things that are good, society's told us things that are bad. But we've been told that like being a racist, being a sexist, any of these bad things or any of these things, they are bad to be. So it's like and like people like to call people out on things for when people do bad things. Because it makes them feel better. It's like, I wouldn't do that. I want to call that out. It'll make me feel better. Also, like there might be some people that have done those things and they want to like project it outward and call someone else out on it. I probably think it has something to do with that. Like calling someone out for doing something that like is like kind of like unanimously agreed upon.
Mm-hmm. It's sort of like a shield. Like if you can be part of the mob, then you're not going to be targeted.
But yeah, kind of. Actually, yeah.
Honestly, it's like, I don't even know if it's that deep. Because, like, I feel like you're right that words are meaningless. So I don't even know if being called a racist or a sexist anymore really affects anything that much. I think we're in a transitional phase at this point where it's like the mob doesn't really exist. Like, they're shadow boxing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, what do you do when you realize the monster isn't out there? And that everyone's been called a monster, so the real monsters, you don't even have the tools to fight them.
Exactly. And I think that's happening. Like we talked about that on the last podcast a little bit, and I want to talk about it more. But it's like, there are still racist and sexist people out there. There are still people that like we would consider like, I guess like wrong. I don't know.
Do you think people like Michael Knowles are racist?
I haven't heard much of his racist rhetoric. I think he's like transphobic.
Okay. Yeah, I would probably call him.
And I'm using that because I actually think he is. I'm not using that because I just want to dismiss something. And if someone wants to talk to me about it and say like, "What? You can't just call him transphobic. You're just a lib for saying it."
What does he say?
I'll fucking get into it with you. I think that like the way that I think it is Michael Knowles. Like he talked about like trans eradication. Or like
yeah.
I think that's like transphobic. I think saying that like I think saying it's a mental illness is okay if you think that there's steps that we need to take then to help it. But if you're just using it to dismiss those people's lives, then you don't even really care that it's a mental illness. It's like the same thing with like gun violence, right? Like someone gets like there's a school shooting and you say, okay, yeah, there's a mental health epidemic. But then if you don't like go and try to talk about like mental health remedies, then you don't even really care. So it's like, for those reasons, I think he is transphobic.
Why do you think conservatives have gone so big on the trans thing?
It probably ties a little bit into religion, ties into like conservatism, like traditional norms. It's just like it's a shock to the system, right? Like there isn't just like, some people don't believe there's even like gender and sex. They don't believe those two things are different. So it's kind of just like, whoa, like there's like gender and I have to like know that like there's different kinds of things going on that I haven't been taught. Cause like you go to school until like you're on average, bro, like probably like 20, like people, I don't know, I'll say on average you go to school till you're 20, but you don't really like learn anything after that. Like you kind of like choose what you want to learn, right? For the most part. So it's like, we've all been taught in school that gender is separate from sex, like we've learned all those things. But a lot of these people, it's like a shock to their system. They're like it confuses their mind and it confuses their world. So it's like you have to fight back against it because it's like, what's the like when talking about like extraterrestrials or something? It's like what confuses you fear kind of thing, or like you fear of the unknown, and that's unknown. So I think it's like a pushback against that.
I wonder if
the uncomfortability of it.
Do you think like 15, 20 years ago, Republicans were like running the same playbook with gay people, like to this extent?
It's not to this extent because social media blows up everything.
Okay, that's probably part of it too. Yeah.
But yeah, there's probably like a very similar thing. It's like
I know they're doing it with
men
race
and women
back in the day.
like each other. That's it.
Yeah.
Right. And then like, we're like, oh, there's gay people.
And it is a similar playbook. It's like you start with the children, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like you start with the children. You say, how are we doing this to kids? And then you lose that battle because no one's arguing for that. So you start talking about authoritarianism and how they're imposing it on us, and then the left reforms to be libertarian and just say, hey, it's personal choice. The libertarian part of the right starts agreeing with them. Then the public polling goes so that everyone agrees with the left on the issue,
and then
they give up and they go to a new battlefield.
Exactly.
That's what happened with race. It's what happened with gay people. It's happening with trans people, and it's going to be all over soon.
Yeah, you might need to sit on this for a second. But what do you think is the next war, like cultural war? Because right now it's trans people. And this is hard because there's no idea. Like, no one could have guessed that trans people was going to be the war that people fought.
It's a good question. I think that, I mean, one of the, like Elon Musk scientific-y things I could say is, like, something with artificial intelligence could be the next thing, you know?
I more so mean, like, what do you think is going to be a fight, eventually a norm? What's going to go from, what's going to happen? What's the next projection? And we're 25 minutes in. You can, like, think. I don't think people will mind getting to this point.
So post-trans, I mean, it could be something else with around gender or
I
sexuality.
think it's going to have something to do with that as well.
It could be like an open relationships type thing.
The next thing could be gender abolition.
That could be next. And
because I actually kind of believe in that, right?
You do.
Like, I was talking about that yesterday.
I feel like we're just going to become conservatives at some point, and not
we
because
probably
we
will.
become
But that's the
right.
the Overton window.
Yeah,
that's what happens.
It just keeps shifting, and then
But I mean, I would like to think that I'm open-minded enough that it won't happen to me. Like, I don't know if I'll ever be like conservative or something, but I might lean more right the older I get. But it's not going to be because I'm leaning more right. It's going to be because the world is leaning more left, or the Western world, I should say.
I saw a meme the other day where it was like a video of a guy, like some robot was coming up to him in a restaurant, like a little like rolling thing, and like delivering him his food, and he like kicks it as it goes away, and the text was like, "This guy's gonna be canceled for this in like 50 years." So maybe that will be a thing. I don't know.
Yeah, it's fun to think about, but you really don't know how it's going to work out.
Yeah, that's a weird one because, like, simultaneously, me saying that like that'll be the next battlefield is like robots have rights. I sound like a goofy fucking like sci-fi nerd saying that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we're seeing all this advancement that at some point it's going to be like, oh, it's not stupid anymore.
Yeah.
It already kind of is at that point, you know.
I heard that apparently they already put in the first whatever like chip that Elon Musk has been working on. They did their first human implantation.
Yeah, like that shit's going to be a lot more common. And
Yeah.
I wish conservatives would ally with me on that battlefield because I'm very against like technology integrating to that point. But they're too sold out to capitalism that they're just going to defend it, you know?
Yeah. Oh man, what do you think about Elon Musk being like a pioneer in like green energy essentially, but also like being that conservative person online? Like, I swear, like there was a Greta Thunberg post that he just like responded with a laughing emoji. Like, how do you think he's living in his life? Like, where's like the disconnect there? Because he's for anyone wondering and thinking Elon Musk is your boy, he likes green energy. He wants to move to green energy, but he's also doing all these things online that would be akin to like a conservative person that wouldn't probably.
I think that he's probably a troll and an egomaniac, and he wants to be the most powerful person in the world. And so he's going to go where people
Do you
love
think
him.
he's
similar to Trump in some ways?
Yeah. Do you think he's like a little kid and it's like fun to rebel when you're a little kid? And like, what do you rebel against right now? Like you say like, oh, you can't say anything anymore. I'm going to do it. Yeah. I'm going to rebel.
I think that's just kind of the wave. And it's so tired, I feel like, at this point. It's like we've been hearing people... Like, Dave Chappelle's hard to watch at this point.
I know.
It's just like... And he's a really funny guy, but it's like, dude, just shut the fuck up. Like, who cares about the shit
We don't need to hear another
about?
trans joke.
Yeah, it's like... And they say, oh, they're going to cancel me. Bro, you can go on Netflix and do these $20 million specials. You can say whatever you want on the internet.
The biggest streaming platform in the world you can talk on, I think you're allowed to talk about it.
Yeah, it's just like... Geez.
Yeah, people also... I see this on like YouTube Shorts a lot. It's like it's a video of like someone talking about some kind of truth and saying like this isn't what the media wants you to see. It's like more people consume media that isn't traditional now.
Yeah.
I don't think people are like hiding anything from you.
Like I was talking to you about how the left has an underdog complex where like they won't realize that they've won, you know? Like I think the right has the same complex. Like they're trying to shut
everyone
down.
does.
Everyone wants to be the underdog. They want to be like the rebel.
Everyone wants to be. Oh man, what's the word for it? Everyone wants to be the victim.
Yeah.
Like they love shitting on left wing people for being the victims and stuff, and I think that does happen a lot.
They
but
want to be the
conservative
victim,
people want to be the victim just as much.
Yeah, it's so true. It's not just victim. It's like they want to be like the guy from the outside who's taking down the system, and it's like, guess what? Both the left and the right control certain systems, and you have to own that, you know? We're not all rebels. There's not some boogeyman. It's just us, you know? That's the big thing is, like, all these systems that we talk about, like, they're abstract things or, like, they're run by elites. Like, we choose to buy these products every day. We choose to participate in this culture every day. It's just us.
Yeah, it's like a person who identifies as a socialist with their Starbucks coffee and their Apple MacBook, you know?
Yeah.
Which also, that kind of ties back into like the gender abolitionist thing, which I think might start to happen like in the next 20 years or something. It's like we're all a lot more similar than we think. Like I was talking about this yesterday, that like if you like take like a 7-year-old boy and a 7-year-old girl, they are going to skew, like the boy's going to skew towards like cars, whereas the girl might skew towards like Barbies or something. But that's because even at that age, you have been socially conditioned. Whereas they've like done studies on like small like infants. Like I don't know what the age goes up to, but it's like, no, I don't think it's past the age of 1. And it's like relatively 50-50 on like what toys they pick, like what gendered toys they pick. And I think we're a lot more similar than people think. And it really just depends on like what your environment is that dictates who you become. So that's why I think the gender abolitionist idea makes a lot more sense, because it's like eventually we're just going to realize like we're all a lot more similar than you think. And like gender doesn't even really matter that much at that point.
Yeah, I can see. Oh, so let me ask you a question. Do you think race abolition will become a thing? And
theoretically, yes.
I can even preempt what you're saying. It's like if the argument against that would be like, oh, but races have like unique histories and struggles.
That's what I mean. It would be the culture. You
could say the exact same thing about gender.
I agree. It would be the culture. Like I think it's a lot harder to. Well, actually, both things are going to be hard to eventually happen, and I'm not pushing for any. I'm just like speculating, right? But it's the abolishing race. I feel like would be a lot harder just because there's so much more like cultural history behind it. You know, like even like Denzel Washington talks about like the fact that like when he's working with like a black director, like they know what it's like to run like a hot comb through their hair in the morning, so the movie's going to be more authentic. It's like those things have been happening in history for so long. So it's really like whether or not race or gender gets abolished at some point all has to do with what like history is easier to like put in the past.
I think, you know, Neil Brennan.
No.
He's a comedian. He's like made a lot of shit with Dave Chappelle. But he had a joke where he was like, the way to end racism is just to end races. So like everyone looks like the LMFAO guys. And he was just like, and I'll start with Asian women.
That's funny.
Like, we have to
It's like everyone like starts to have sex with
But it's honestly true. Like that'll be the end of that. I want to say something about cancel culture. I'm fucking sick of people talking about cancel culture. They say, oh, like everyone gets canceled. It's like, you know what cancel culture is? You say something your audience doesn't like and they say, I'm not going to watch you anymore. What part of that is authoritarian or corrupt? That's just capitalism. That's just society.
I mean, to cancel culture's point, like it's less effective now because there are these other sites out there. But I would say like effectively Andrew Tate was canceled. Like if there was no Rumble, Andrew Tate would have been wiped off the planet. Like he wasn't allowed on anything.
Yeah, because the people on those platforms didn't want to hear what he had to say.
But not his viewers.
Well, his viewers can watch him on his platform.
I know they can now, but I'm saying if Rumble didn't exist, he would have effectively been canceled.
I just think it's dumb. It's like if you go into like...
I do think it is dumb. Like I think there is the point that like there is Rumble, there is X, there are these alternative platforms, but I do think that those platforms had to be made because cancel culture was relatively effective.
Sure, but like that's a good thing. I feel like if you're going to somebody's platform and everyone on that platform fucking hates what you're saying, or a big enough majority that the platform says,
or a loud enough minority, to be fair.
Yeah, it's like it's like going to perform at a theater and like 90% of the audience is like, you sound like an asshole.
Yeah,
like, we don't want to hold you
and
anymore.
That's probably true. It's like, who are the people that really like Andrew Tate the most? Like it's like young boys. That is a very small percentage of people.
If it were a majority of the platform who liked him, or even a sizable minority,
he wouldn't have been canceled.
He wouldn't have been taken off.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, you do agree that like cancel like was effective historically. It's just people don't care as much.
Yeah,
anymore.
Of course it's effective because that's just how people work. Like if we don't like stuff, we stop watching it.
Yeah.
Like if you want to call that cancel culture, okay, but that's just like that's what you're describing is negative opinions towards things.
Yeah, it's just, and the negative opinion is so strong that you feel it needs to be wiped.
Yeah, but people talk about it like it's not that. Like it's not, hey, most people don't like, it's like voting a politician out of office you don't like. Is that canceling them?
Yeah.
Like you're taking away their power because you're voting to say, yeah, we don't want you to have power anymore.
Yeah, I agree.
It's
and I think we do personally disagree with people being like removed from platforms, but I do agree it's like you're not really getting canceled. Most people think what you're saying is wrong, and we disagree with them being deplatformed for that. Like I think people should talk about those issues. But yeah, I do agree. If like most people do think Andrew Tate's a bit of a jackass and he does say some like pretty incorrect things.
I'm not saying that you shouldn't have free speech anymore, but if that platform doesn't like
you do think I agree. It does make sense. Yeah. No, that's fair. This is a bit off topic, but what do you think like the most important things to do within an argument to convince someone of something, or like to keep it civil? Because like arguments flare up really quick a lot. So it's like. So just like in respect to like keeping it civil. Like,
do you mean in like a political debate or like a personal?
Any sense. So like, how do you what techniques would you use to keep a argument civil?
So I think there's two really
because that's
important
the most
things.
important thing right now.
There's two keys to keeping an argument civil, and the first is before you start arguing, know what you want out of the argument, and then the second is to just put yourself in the other person's perspective. So like I don't think you should ever get into an argument with someone if you know that the other person isn't going to change their mind. That's a pointless argument. Or if you're not open to changing your mind, what's the point of arguing about it then? You should be willing to say,
assuming it's just you two people present.
Assuming it's two people, yeah. Like let's give an example. Like say we had a fight about like every night I was staying up too late making a bunch of noise, and and then we had an argument about it. It's like, why would I talk to you about it if I'm not willing to change my behavior? You know?
Yeah.
So like you have to be willing to self-sacrifice to some extent. Or maybe I want to maintain my
So
thing.
what would you do if you think it's still worth talking about, but you know that it's like it might not, you don't think it'll immediately change their mind? Like it might have to be work.
Patience is just the key there.
Just keep going.
Yeah. Like
so then what would you do on your end to try to keep it as civil as you can from your perspective? Like how would you engage with the conversation?
So if we were fighting about that, I'd be like, I understand that this is really annoying, but like this is the reason I'm doing it, and I'd just explain my point of view and understand your point of view.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's rare that you're gonna find like no middle ground on something when both people are coming in good faith.
Yeah, I agree. I think that is really important. I do also think though that sometimes, and I do believe that a lot of this can be alleviated based on like your tone, and that's like a pretty important thing. Like your tone, I've learned, is way more important than the words that you're using.
Yeah.
Which sucks a little for me because I mean I might be a robot, right? And like I think the words you say matter more, but like tone, the vast majority of people care about instead of what you're saying.
And some people have argumentative like triggers, right? So like I know for me, if I'm in an argument and someone starts talking down to me or patronizing me, that's going to drive me crazy more than anything that they're saying, right? Hannah, like if I come to her really cold and clinical and start talking about facts and shit, that's going to drive her crazy. And so it's like you have to know who you're talking to. That does sound like a women emotion, but I don't mean, it's not like facts. It's more like if I come with like I'm saying no emotion right now and I'm just talking about like that's really fucking annoying to do, you know? So you have to understand what drives people crazy and then just not do that shit. Yeah,
I get that. And then a little bit, what do you think is important to bring into the conversation if you're trying to convince them of something?
I'm trying to convince someone of
something. It's like,
oh yeah, this is interesting. So we have a few friends who are more conservative than us, like Rana and Ethan.
I honestly think I changed Ethan's mind a little bit in that debate.
Yeah, you probably did, you know. But that's like a different context than normally talking to people, right? Yeah. Like there's debate stuff. And we can talk about it. Let's start with there. Like, how do you think you changed his mind?
Okay, so, well, firstly, I'd like to criticize myself. I think that there were moments when I was a little too aggressive. Like, not like really aggressive, obviously, but there were moments when like he was talking still, and I was like, I'm going to need you to answer this. Like, I need you to say this. And I'm like, you agree with this, don't you? So it's like my tone there was probably bad, right? And it probably would have generally been more effective if I didn't have such a aggressive tone. But I think that like the repetition of what I was trying to say. So it's like we were doing Trump versus Biden debate. And I thought his premise was faulty, right? Like saying just because Biden is old and can't communicate the good things he's done somehow makes him worse than Trump, who has done vastly worse, right? And like things that some people might consider evil. So I think like the repetition of that, and then like I think it was important to grab an example and then reiterate the conclusion. And I think that's what I was doing for the most part. I was talking about legislation, conclusion, like Ukraine, conclusion. And then like at the end, like it feels like you agree with me a lot on this, don't you? And he says yes. And then I'm like, okay, so then what's really going on? And then like in the debate, obviously no one's going to change their mind in the moment. So it's a little harder to do. But I think after, it did feel a little bit like there was a bit of a mind change.
I think the reason you were so successful in that debate is because, and these are the only debates I ever have, is if I can determine this, is because you determined, anyone can say, oh, Biden's better than Trump. But what you were saying is, even from your premise, Ethan, you should vote for Biden, right? Like, I really like those conversations of trying to convince someone that, based on what you believe, you should
meet them where they're
at.
I
exactly.
Believe.
One important
that's where
thing,
like that's something you can do with trans people, right? So it's like if like there's someone who's like transphobic generally, but they're a libertarian or something. You would say, like, don't you think people should have the right to be able to do what they want to do? So, like, you meet them there. You don't try to convince them that, like, gender is different from sex. You don't try to convince them of anything that they don't care about. But you talk to what they care about, and you say, you think people should have their own autonomy and do what they want to do. That's why this matters.
You're absolutely right. And to kind of circle back to the left thing, a lot of people, probably most transphobic people that you'll say that to, will be like, yeah, I agree that adults should have the right to do what they want to do. There are some crazy people who will not say that, but most people will say that. And I feel like you have to take that. Like, that's fine. If someone's a libertarian and they're like, yeah, adults should have the right to do what they want to do. I don't want to engage with it. I think it's weird, but they should have that right. They're 90% of the way there. Take it. Most left people won't take it.
And like, like you don't need to win the war in that battle, right? Like, you've maybe moved them 5%. That's better than none, right?
With debates in particular, I don't remember if you did this in the Ethan debate. I'd have to watch it back. But there has to be a give and take. One of the most important things is you can't kick someone when they're down. Like, if they're already on their heels, don't keep hammering, because all they're going to think is that you're an asshole. And you being an asshole is going to become so much more important than whether your argument is valid or not.
And I think I might have done that a little, which is why, like, I'm noticing it, and, like, I will then try to fix that. I think I probably did that a little bit.
Just like, once you get them down, it's like a UFC fight, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Let them tap.
Yeah, I agree. Totally. Yeah. Well, this is like 40 minutes. I think I'm pretty cool.
Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed watching. We'll have more clips coming out soon. We got a pretty big interview on the way that'll be dropping this month. I hope you guys enjoy that.
Yeah.
Go Niners.
Go Niners.
All right.
See ya.